Hey guys, tonight we're sliding into the silk-lined, perfume-drenched world of high fashion, and not just any fashion, but the dark, glittering, oddly musty corners of Chanel. That's right, the same Chanel that gave us little black dresses, handbags you have to finance, and perfume that's supposed to make you irresistible to Frenchmen and possibly also ghosts. But beneath the glamour lies something far weirder, a story of scandal, sabotage, and enough personal drama to fill a department store with awkward silences. Before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me what you think is the most overrated brand of all time, or just confess the weirdest thing in your closet. I read them all, usually while wearing pajamas that cost less than a Chanel button. Now, dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft white noise, and find the comfiest spot you've got. Maybe pour yourself a glass of wine, or if you're feeling authentic, dab a little perfume behind your ears and look judgmentally at your own reflection. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it would really be like to live as Coco Chanel? How do you invent a fashion empire when you start out sleeping on a convent cot? Did Chanel ever actually sew, or did she just shout at people until beautiful things happened? Was Chanel No. 5 named after her 5th nervous breakdown? How did she become so chic while being, frankly, a little terrifying? And what do you do if your best friends are Nazi officers, Russian aristocrats, and a society that judges you for eating more than a lettuce leaf? And now, congratulations, you've just woken up in Paris, somewhere between a smoky jazz bar and a tailor's sweatshop. The year is 1924, your lipstick is perfect, your morals are questionable, and your boss is already plotting to steal credit for your work. Welcome to the House of Chanel. Good luck. You wake up not in a bed, but in a convent dormitory, surrounded by nuns who believe fun is a gateway drug. Your shoes are 2 sizes too big, and your pillow is the sleeve of a second-hand coat. This is not the glamorous start you expected, unless your idea of glamour is starch, sermons, and never-ending chores. Let's take stock of your surroundings. The walls are the colour of sadness, the floors are cold enough to qualify as a medieval form of cryotherapy, and the mattress is basically a warning label for hay fever. There's a draft coming from somewhere, possibly from the afterlife itself, reminding you that heating is for rich people and imaginary friends. Above you, rows of other girls sigh and snore, dreaming if they're lucky of better lives, or at least better blankets. The day doesn't begin so much as it ambushes you. The morning bell rings, loud enough to startle the mice into prayer. You leap out of your itchy woolen cocoon and stand at attention with the rest of the orphans. Breakfast is served in a cavernous hall where the main decor is echoes and regret. The nuns glide by, faces set to severe, their robes rustling like someone angrily folding laundry. You clutch your bowl, some kind of gruel that tastes like it once knew a potato, and try to chew in a way that doesn't invite correction. There's a strict uniform policy here. You get what you're given, and you're grateful if it doesn't smell too strongly of previous occupants. Your daily outfit is a hand-me-down shift with so many patches, it looks like it was designed by someone playing Tetris. The nuns are big on modesty, which means you're swaddled from chin to ankle, all in shades of washed out. Occasionally you spot a girl in a slightly less grey frock and you know she's either in trouble or the recipient of a rare laundry miracle. Personal grooming is simple, there isn't any. Showers are mythical, baths are rare, and combs are shared commodities, usually missing half their teeth. You become a master of the quick finger comb and the strategic scarf. If you're lucky, a wash day rolls around, but wash is a generous word. The soap is basically industrial lye, and the water is cold enough to make you reconsider all your life choices. You scrub your dress until your hands are raw, hang it on a line, and pray the wind doesn't carry it off to a more fashionable child. But what about the fun, you ask? Well, that's forbidden, obviously. Laughter is greeted with suspicion, and anything resembling a game is considered a fast-track ticket to moral collapse. Your free time consists of chores, laundering, mending, sweeping, peeling potatoes, and occasionally peeling something that might have once been a potato, but could just as easily be a rock. If you want to rebel, you can risk reading by candlelight after curfew, but only if you want to experience both literary enlightenment and mild arson anxiety. The days are long and the rules are longer. You memorize prayers in Latin, not because you understand them, but because reciting them is safer than having thoughts. If you talk back, you're reassigned to reflection, which is basically time out with extra guilt. The only entertainment is chapel, where you get to sing, quietly, reverently, and with the full awareness that joy is to be rationed like sugar. Yet, in this world of sameness and scarcity, you develop a superpower, resourcefulness. A spare ribbon is treasure. A needle and thread are the tools of revolution. You learn to fix, to mend, to make do. You notice the fit of every hem, the give in every fabric, the confidence in a well-tied sash. Survival becomes an art. Fashion, ironically, is born from necessity. How to make yourself stand out with nothing but a scrap of lace and a dream. So, as you finally tumble back into your drafty communal bunk at the end of the day, you clutch your sleeve pillow and let your mind wander, wondering if, someday, you'll trade starch and sermons for silk and a name the world will remember. Maybe, just maybe, poverty is the real designer label. It's still dark outside, but your day's already begun. You're hunched over coarse linen, sewing until your fingers bleed, surrounded by women who gossip in whispers and needles. Lunch is stale bread and silent resentment. Forget haute couture. You're mastering the art of pretending not to cry into your thread. Let's talk working conditions. The workroom is actually just a drafty attic smelling faintly of damp socks and permanently burnt porridge. You and a dozen other women cram elbow to elbow around a splintery table that's seen more tears than polish. The windows are either so grimy you can't see out, or wide open to the elements. Take your pick between hypothermia and darkness. The one constant. The soft, relentless clack of needles and the occasional hiss of someone stabbing their own thumb. The sewing never stops. There's always another order, another rush, another stack of unfinished garments that somehow multiplies every time you blink. Your job is simple. Don't drop a stitch, don't bleed on the fabric, and for the love of all things holy, don't ever complain within earshot of the forewoman. She can spot a weak seam or a weak spirit from 3 tables away, and her only hobby is creative punishments. The only break you get is when your needle snaps, which means you have about 30 seconds to contemplate your life choices before someone shoves another one in your hand. The pay? Barely enough for the privilege of surviving another day. You're paid by the piece, which means the faster you sew, the more you might earn, or the more likely you are to ruin your eyesight before the age of 20. Your hands are rough, your back aches, and you've memorized the exact number of ceiling cracks above your spot. Benefits? You get to keep your own thimble, assuming you can find it in the pile of other lost hopes. You eat where you work. Lunch is a communal affair, but not in the fun picnic sense. It's more of a competitive bread-chewing event. Whoever finishes first gets dibs on the least wobbly chair for the afternoon session. Gossip is the only seasoning. If you're lucky, the conversation turns to rumours of a new factory opening down the street, one with real windows and perhaps, in your wildest dreams, an actual bathroom. You allow yourself 5 minutes of idle hope, then it's back to needlework and mumbled prayers. Time here is measured not in hours, but in garments completed. There's always a rush order, always a customer who demands perfection, and always the ever-present threat of a returned piece that will have to be redone after hours, by candlelight, with extra scolding. The candles themselves are more wax than light, but they're all you've got. Your fingers are perpetually waxy, your eyes sting from the smoke, and the only thing more likely to burn out than the candle is your motivation. The other workers are your only real company. There's Louise, who swears she once made a dress for a countess, and Marie, who's saving up for a train ticket out of this town, though she's been saving for about 6 years. The rest of you share stories, share needles, and when the boss isn't looking, share tiny moments of laughter. It's not much, but in a world of thread and blisters, a joke is as valuable as a pay raise. As the day drags on, your mind drifts. Maybe you imagine a world where you're designing the dresses instead of sewing them. Maybe your name is on the label, not just the ledger. But right now, ambition is measured by the inch, and you're too busy sewing dreams into seams to look up for long. Night finally arrives, though it's really just the moment the last candle gutters out and you're told to leave. Your eyes ache, your back is bent, and your hands look like they've lost a knife fight with a pincushion. You step out into the dark street, clutching your little sack of coins and your remaining dignity, and wonder if tomorrow will bring anything more than another mountain of linen and a fresh opportunity to practice the art of silent endurance. Because here, in the sweatshop's soft, flickering shadows, you learn the hard way. Every fashion empire is built on stitches, yes, but also on stories like yours, whispered through needle and thread in the dead of night. Nights are spent on a smoky stage, belting out songs to crowds who are only half listening. You dream of satin gowns, but you're stuck in a borrowed dress and shoes that click louder than applause. If you sing well, you eat. If not, you get advice from a drunk accordionist and another night's sleep on a borrowed couch. The cabaret is less Parisian glamour and more creaky piano, peeling wallpaper, and an audience that smells faintly of cigarettes and regret. The room is a haze of cheap tobacco, stale perfume, and the occasional whiff of boiled potatoes drifting in from the kitchen. Your stage is little more than a wooden crate perched under a single flickering light bulb. It swings just enough to make every note feel like a high-wire act. One wrong move, and you're illuminated like a criminal on the run. Your fellow performers are a motley crew. The magician who's never gotten through his act without dropping at least one rabbit. The chorus girl who is also the bartender. And Pierre the accordionist, who claims to have played for royalty but spends most nights serenading empty bottles. Backstage is a tight squeeze, a flurry of nervous energy, gossip and last-minute wardrobe malfunctions. You pin your dress one more time, touch up your lipstick with a stub of someone else's, and pray the audience is too distracted to notice your hem is held together with hope and a safety pin. Your dressing room is really just the bit of alley behind the stage where you can change behind a curtain and hope the local cats give you some privacy. Here, you learn the real meaning of resourcefulness, fixing a broken heel with string, using candle soot as eyeliner, and learning how to dodge unwanted advances from men who think tipping is a form of courtship. The nightly routine never changes. Never. You climb onto the stage, squint into the smoky crowd, and take a shaky breath. The spotlight stings your eyes, and you try to ignore the man in the front row arguing with his wine. You sing with everything you've got, nostalgic love songs, raucous drinking tunes, maybe a lullaby for someone who desperately needs one. Some nights, your voice soars and the room hushes. Other nights, you're little more than background music for a lost generation of gamblers and gossipers. But there are moments, a sudden hush, a single cheer, a drunken chorus from the back tables, when it almost feels like magic. You close your eyes and let yourself pretend that you're wearing silk, that the spotlight is warm, that tomorrow you'll wake up in a room of your own with breakfast that doesn't come in a chipped bowl. Between sets, you collect your tips, mostly coins, occasionally a flower, once, memorably, a sausage roll. You stash your earnings in a secret pocket, count them twice, and decide if you can afford dinner or just another cup of strong coffee to keep you singing for one more night. Some evenings, a sympathetic regular will buy you soup. On luckier nights, you get an actual meal and a bed. On the unlucky ones, you follow the trail of faded laughter and cigarette butts back to a friend's lumpy sofa. The cabaret years teach you resilience with every out-of-tune piano note. You master the art of banter, of smiling when you want to scream, of delivering a love song to a room that barely notices you exist. And you watch, always, the parade of well-dressed women in the audience, their pearls and perfect posture, cataloguing every dress and every dream you swear you'll one day own. Eventually, as dawn creeps through the window and you pack up your borrowed dress, you realize you've survived another night. Not just survived, but sung your way through it. Maybe that's enough. Because in a city where applause is rare and dreams are fragile, singing for supper is its own kind of triumph, and every night you manage it, you're already a star, at least to yourself. By day you dodge debt collectors. By night, you charm wealthy men who think a girl with opinions is an exotic animal. Some offer roses, others offer rent money. Every gift has strings attached, usually around your neck. Welcome to the real Parisian hustle, where your landlord is scarier than any nun and every dinner invitation comes with a contract hidden between the courses. You keep a ledger of who's owed what, who's expecting a thank you note, and who's about to happen to bump into you at the opera. Navigating the city's salons and supper clubs, you quickly learn that flattery is a currency, and secrets are small change in every conversation. The people you meet have titles longer than their attention spans and more ex-wives than clean shirts. It's all a performance. In the afternoon, you're an expert at slipping out the back when creditors show up at your building. A scarf tied just so, a hat tipped at the right angle. These are not fashion choices, they're camouflage. Your best friend is the doorman, who's learned to cough twice when someone arrives with an unpleasant final notice. You spend the rest of the day rehearsing stories about inheritances, influential relatives, or the small fortune you're about to receive from a Russian prince who tragically can't send money until next Tuesday. As the sun sets, your real work begins. You swap your sensible shoes for high heels that look impressive but double as medieval torture devices. Your dress, pressed and borrowed, is held together with an optimism that defies both gravity and common sense. You arrive at some smoke-filled lounge where the wine is expensive and the company is not always so. The room is filled with men who mistake your wit for flirtation, your politeness for promise, and your laughter for a down payment. You perfect the art of conversation, the light touch on the arm, the slightly exaggerated laugh, the ability to listen to hours of rambling about stock markets, imported cigars, and what it was like to almost meet Picasso. You tell yourself you're just collecting stories, but sometimes the stories collect you. Each admirer comes with his own expectations. Dinners, theatre tickets, secret letters slipped into your coat pocket. The most dangerous ones offer actual affection, as if you have room in your life for romance between rent notices and rehearsals. Every arrangement is a balancing act. Some suitors shower you with gifts, flowers, pearls. The occasional chateau you suspect comes with several surprise relatives. Others are more practical, offering to take care of you, which is code for introducing you to their wives as the talented young seamstress, while quietly paying your tailor's bill. The city gossips, of course. One week you're the toast of the town, the next you're the cautionary tale. Proof that ambition is an accessory no woman should wear too boldly. Yet you become adept at survival. When love turns to scandal, you change your address. When scandal turns to danger, you change your name. You develop the kind of charm that can diffuse a shouting match with a well-timed smile, or convince a creditor that you're merely a victim of tragic banking errors. For every door that closes, there's a window with a silk curtain and a view of the next opportunity. In this game, you don't just collect admirers, you collect experience. You learn to spot the difference between genuine kindness and calculated generosity, between promises that come in velvet boxes and those that come with ledgers. You recognize the value of independence, even if you can only afford it in small stolen moments between parties. And if some nights you find yourself alone, counting coins on a borrowed couch, you remind yourself, you're not just a kept woman or a pretty face. You're a survivor, a strategist, an artist, painting a future with whatever colours society will let you steal. Tomorrow you'll be back on the social circuit, laughing at jokes you've heard 100 times, eyes on the prize. Because in a city built on secrets and silk, you know better than anyone. Every gift is an investment, and every investment is just another step on the long, crooked staircase to the top. You find yourself surrounded by feathery hats and even featherier egos. Your first shop is the size of a broom closet and smells faintly of despair. Customers come for gossip, leave with headaches, and occasionally a hat. But hey, it's a start. You sweep the floor every morning, not because it helps, but because it makes you feel like you're in control of something besides your own mounting anxiety. The walls are so close together you can hear your own thoughts echo. The front window is just big enough to let in a single ray of sunlight, and approximately a dozen noseprints from passers-by, who can't decide whether this is a fashion destination or a slightly eccentric taxidermy studio. Inventory is a mixture of what you can afford, what you can salvage, and what you can cleverly disguise as new. Feathers, ribbons, bits of lace. Every scrap is valuable, every button worth a negotiation. You become a one-person assembly line, crafting hats that range from tastefully daring to an actual bird may be living in this. Sometimes you pause and wonder if you're selling fashion or elaborate excuses for personal space. Your first customers are not so much shoppers as spectators. They drift in, trailing perfume and curiosity, pretending they need a hat for an event that doesn't exist. The true reason? To pick over your wares and your reputation. They whisper about your past, your associates, and whether that is in fact real ostrich on the mannequin. One lady tries on every single hat, spends an hour narrating her life story, and leaves with only a free hairpin and your patience, which she does not return. In these early days, your main rival is boredom. When there's a lull between customers, you reorganize the hats by colour, by size, by which ones have most recently been attacked by moths. You spend more time people-watching than profit-making, memorising the routines of local shopkeepers and the postman who always delivers bills with the solemnity of a funeral director. But business is never just business. The boutique quickly becomes a neighbourhood salon, a place for whispered news and not-so-accidental run-ins. Your most loyal patrons are often the least fashionable but the most in need of a confidant. They buy a hat, then stay for the company, trading secrets over the counter in voices low enough to qualify as conspiracy. You learn more about your customers than you ever wanted. Whose marriage is on the rocks, who is feuding over a garden fence, and who secretly prefers bonnets to cloches. Every day is a new challenge. Sometimes it's rain leaking through the roof and onto your best display. Sometimes it's a supplier who swears the feathers are fresh and ethically sourced, though you have your doubts. More often, it's the simple terror of hoping you'll sell enough to cover rent and maybe, just maybe, splurge on a pot of real tea instead of whatever you've been brewing out of leftover flower petals and optimism. Yet in this tiny space, surrounded by chaos and second-hand furniture, something magical begins to take root. Each sale is a small personal victory, a step away from the world of sweatshops and borrowed dresses. When a customer admires your handiwork, when they gasp at the tilt of a brim or the flash of a ribbon, you feel a flutter of pride stronger than the caffeine in your third cup of ersatz coffee. The hats themselves become silent partners in your ambition. They perch in the window, drawing eyes, and occasionally envy from those who can't quite afford one yet. A well-placed hat can change a woman's afternoon, and maybe, if she's lucky, her entire outlook. You start to believe that these little triumphs, these fabric miracles, could be your ticket out. And so, you dust the feathers, straighten the sign, and greet every customer with a smile stitched together from equal parts hope and stubbornness. This shop is small, and the profits are smaller, but it's yours. You're no longer only dreaming of a place in Parisian society. You're building one slightly lopsided, outrageously feathery hat at a time. It's 1926 and you've just invented the little black dress. People are scandalized. Is it mourning? Is it chic? Is it all you can afford? Doesn't matter. The world's about to go monochrome and you're the reason everyone's grandmother thinks black is slimming. Let's set the scene. Paris is awash in colours, plumage, pearls, flappers dressed like rare tropical birds. Yet here you are holding up a simple straight black frock. The shop assistant eyes it with uncertainty. The society ladies flinch as if you've sneezed in the middle of high tea. You're not sure if you've just invented a masterpiece or triggered a fashion apocalypse. Black until now is for widows, servants, or people who lost a bet with a bottle of ink. But you have a theory. True style isn't about embroidery or bows or looking like you fell into a vat of sequins. It's about confidence. And what's more confident than walking into a crowded room dressed like you might own the place, or at least could rob it with impressive efficiency? You stitch the first sample yourself, every seam straight, every hem deliberate. There's no lace, no embellishment, just pure, unbroken black. Practical, mysterious, easy to launder if you spill wine or tears or both. The critics descend. Some accuse you of ruining womanhood. Others suspect you're staging a mass funeral for French optimism. The local paper runs a cartoon depicting a world where everyone's dressed for a séance. But for every pearl-clutching dowager who gasps, there's a young woman peering into the shop window, seeing herself, modern, sharp, utterly unfussy. They come in quietly, asking to try it on just for curiosity. 5 minutes later, they're swanning out the door, their entire posture changed. The magic of the little black dress is its versatility. With a strand of pearls, it's evening elegance. With a cardigan, it's office armour. With red lipstick, it's an act of revolution. It can hide last night's regrets or signal that you have none. You overhear women in cafes debating, is she in mourning or just terribly fashionable? Men don't know what to make of it. Your rivals, meanwhile, scramble to copy your daring look, adding ruffles or beads, missing the entire point. You're asked, over and over, why black? You explain, in your most patient, exasperated voice, that black suits every woman, every occasion, and never ever clashes with itself. Plus, no one notices if you wear the same dress twice, which, frankly, is a mercy for your bank account. Secretly, you know the truth. Black is the colour of rebellion. It's the colour you choose when you're done playing by someone else's rules. The orders roll in, at first a trickle, then a flood. Your tiny shop becomes ground zero for a revolution. Women come in groups, trying on the dress, swapping stories, and sharing advice on how to accessorize, or, for the truly daring, how not to accessorize at all. Someone writes a breathless review declaring the LBD the Ford Model T of fashion, affordable, practical, available in any colour, as long as it's black. You clip the article and tuck it away, proof that sometimes simplicity is the most shocking statement of all. Years later, you watch as movie stars, heiresses, and even the most proper society matrons embrace your creation. The little black dress stops being a scandal and becomes a staple. There's a small, secret joy in knowing you changed the world with nothing but a bolt of fabric and the conviction that women deserve both style and freedom. So tonight, as the city glimmers and the party invitations pile up, you slip into your own creation, black as midnight, soft as a whispered insult, and every bit as powerful. The world has gone monochrome, and for the first time it feels like everyone's finally dressed for the future. You're blending mysterious chemicals in a room with no ventilation. Is it perfume or is it a fire hazard? Either way, you're about to change how people smell and start a trademark battle that'll last longer than any scent. Let's talk atmosphere, literally. The laboratory, if you can call it that, is a Parisian closet repurposed with equal parts ambition and flammable liquids. Your workbench is a wobbly table covered with beakers, droppers, and stains of suspicious origin. Bottles labelled in your best guess at French are scattered everywhere. Rose, jasmine, aldehydes, possibly some cough syrup if things get desperate. The air is so thick with fragrance it could qualify as a health risk. Your lungs are performing experiments of their own, and your sense of smell now detects notes of future migraine. This is not how you pictured the glamorous side of fashion. You'd imagine designing gowns, maybe draping silks in the golden light of late afternoon, not hiding out behind locked doors trying to figure out if you've just invented immortality or the world's fanciest bug repellent. The process is half science, half voodoo, and all guesswork. Your chemist, a patient soul with the hands of a surgeon and the nerves of someone who's seen things, keeps asking if you want the scent to be fresh or seductive or revolutionary. You answer, all of it, and he sighs, which in Parisian alchemy is as close as anyone comes to encouragement. There's a constant edge of paranoia. You guard your formulas like a state secret, convinced every rival house is sending spies disguised as flower merchants. You start triple-checking the locks, hiding your notes in biscuit tins, and eyeing your assistants as if they might be double agents for Guerlain. Sleep is a rumour. Every time you close your eyes, you dream of a world overrun by counterfeit bottles and perfume that smell suspiciously like last week's cleaning fluid. The real breakthrough comes, as all good things do, by accident. You ask for a clean, modern scent, a woman's perfume, not a garden party in a bottle. Your chemist, either inspired or delirious, overdoses the aldehydes. The result is strange, clean, sharp, unforgettable. It doesn't smell like flowers or powder or anything that existed before. It smells like confidence, with a hint of gasoline and an aftertaste of destiny. You bottle it, slap a simple label on the front, number 5, because you're too tired for poetry, and it's the 5th sample you've tried. Then comes the naming debate. Your business partners want something lush and romantic like Nuit d'éternité or Fleur du Paradis. You veto everything. You want numbers, not nonsense. Let the product speak for itself. The partners sigh, the chemist blinks twice, and you feel the tiniest rush of victory. Little do you know this is the last moment you'll feel in control for the next 40 years. When number 5 hits the shelves, reactions are mixed. Some women are entranced. Some are convinced it's an elaborate prank. It doesn't matter. The scent is unforgettable, and in Paris that's the only thing worse than being ignored. Bottles fly off shelves. Rumours fly even faster. Did you invent it yourself? Did you steal it? Is it made from rare flowers, secret crystals, or perhaps the sweat of Russian ballerinas? You let people wonder. Mystery is the best ingredient of all. But just as sales begin to soar, the legal storms roll in. Patents, trademarks, contract disputes. It turns out your scent is so popular that even your own business partners are plotting to steal it out from under you. You spend as much time in courtrooms as you do in the lab, fighting for the right to your name, your bottle, your legacy. Every bottle of number 5 sold becomes an act of defiance. Yet through all the drama, the lawsuits, the sleepless nights, the ever-present fear of sabotage, the scent endures. Number 5 becomes more than perfume. It's armour, it's myth, it's the secret handshake of anyone who wants to walk into a room and own it. And as you dab a drop on your wrist before another meeting with your lawyers, you realise you've changed history, one dangerously flammable blend at a time. Your business partners smile at you in public, but in private they're plotting to steal your name, your bottle, and probably your cat. Lawsuits fly. You spend more time with lawyers than with lovers, and your stress level could power the Eiffel Tower. Welcome to the perfume industry, equal parts chemistry and gladiator arena. At first, you're grateful for investors. After all, what's a fashion genius without a backer or two to handle the numbers? But you quickly learn the golden rule. If the contract is thicker than your design portfolio, you're probably being robbed in at least 3 languages. Your collaboration meetings always seem to end with you owning slightly less of your own company, and someone else walking away with a new car. The fight over Chanel No. 5 escalates from business spat to all-out Cold War. You and your partners, who seem to multiply like bad rumours, argue over everything: advertising, pricing, even the colour of the ribbon on the box. In public, you're all grace and chic handshakes. In private, it's a poker game where everyone is hiding aces up their sleeve and possibly a forged signature in their shoe. Lawyers become your new closest friends, though you're fairly certain some of them are also on the opposing team. You learn to sleep with a copy of the contract under your pillow and memorize the address of the courthouse by heart. Sometimes you imagine opening your own law firm, Chanel & Chanel. We sue because we can. Every document arrives with a flurry of sticky notes and a feeling of dread. You develop a 6th sense for litigation, flinching every time the phone rings or someone wishes you a bonne journée. The betrayals don't stop with paperwork. The people you once toasted with champagne now send you threatening telegrams. There are secret shareholder meetings, anonymous letters, and rumours so dramatic they would make even Parisian novelists blush. You start scanning your staff for moles, your lunch for poison, and your cats for listening devices. Trust is as rare as an honest perfume ad. And yet, the more the world tries to cut you out, the more determined you become. You show up to court dressed not for defeat, but for revenge. Tailored suit, impeccable hat, a scent that says approach at your own risk. Your testimony is half evidence, half fashion show. You insist calmly that your name is not for sale, your legacy not a bargaining chip. The judge, who's secretly wearing No. 5, nods with professional admiration. Outside the courtroom, things only get messier. Your business partners launch their own ad campaigns, claiming their version is the true Chanel. Knockoff bottles appear overnight, some so convincing even you have to check twice. The press takes sides, tabloids inventing scandals so outrageous you almost wish they were true. You're painted as everything from a genius to a scheming villainess, depending on which page you turn to. In quieter moments, you reflect on the absurdity of it all. You started with nothing but ambition and a stubborn streak, and now you're fighting tooth and nail for the right to sign your own name. You miss the days when your biggest worry was a bad batch of aldehydes, not an international legal circus. The irony? Every lawsuit, every headline only makes the perfume more famous. People buy No. 5 not just for the scent, but for the story, the drama, the grit, the legendary squabbles behind the bottle. So you keep going. You outwit, outlast, and occasionally outcouture your enemies. You take solace in small victories, a favourable ruling here, a poetic headline there, a letter from a grateful customer who feels invincible in your perfume. You learn that in the world of fragrance, success always has a bitter top note, a complex heart, and a finish that lingers long after the courtroom doors close. By the time dessert is served, another late-night cafe meeting with your lawyers, naturally you've accepted it. Your scent has outlived the partnerships, the betrayals, and maybe even a few of your cats. In the end, the perfume wins, and if you have to wage 1,000 fragrance wars to protect it, well, at least you'll always smell incredible in battle. Every Parisian designer is out to get you. Your new collection is either revolutionary or an insult to French culture, depending on who's gossiping. You invent a suit for women who want to look like they mean business, and also like they might throw a drink in your face. Welcome to the front lines of the Paris fashion wars, where the real blood is spilled in the columns of society gossip pages, and the weapons of choice are pinking shears, poison pens, and the occasional accidental trip on the staircase at a rival's runway show. Here, fashion emergency doesn't mean a wardrobe malfunction, it means a room full of critics so sharp they could hem a skirt with their tongues. Every season, you throw yourself into your work, sketching, cutting, pinning, and occasionally swearing at a mannequin that seems to have its own opinions about waistlines. Your atelier becomes a battleground of inspiration and insomnia. The models parade up and down, tripping over pins, trailed by an army of seamstresses who gossip in 3 languages and can sew a straight line during an earthquake. There's a faint smell of coffee, panic, and ambition. You hardly notice anymore. The stakes are impossibly high. Your rivals lurk everywhere, at the opera, in the lobby, behind potted plants at department stores, pretending not to watch as your new suit walks by on the arm of someone important. One week, a fashion editor hails you as the next oracle of style. The next, she whispers that your new silhouette is a personal attack on French dignity and the female spine. At dinner parties, people debate your latest collection as if the fate of the Republic depends on whether shoulders should be squared or rounded. But you don't back down. You decide that women should wear jackets that actually allow them to breathe, move, and maybe, in a pinch, escape an awkward conversation with dignity and tact. You banish corsets, toss out fussy bows, and create a suit that is all clean lines and confidence. A look that says promotion, and please don't speak to me before coffee in equal measure. Your models strut the runway with hands in pockets, looking as if they could take over the world or at least get through a Parisian lunch without fainting. The reaction is immediate and divided. Young women adore you. Society columnists say you've ruined the mystique of femininity. Rival designers accuse you of importing too many British ideas, or not enough Italian ones, or of secretly collaborating with the enemy, whoever that is this week. Your atelier windows are sometimes decorated with bouquets, sometimes with hate mail. You take it all in stride, your motto becoming, if you can't beat them, make them jealous. The Hunger Games of haute couture are not for the faint of heart. There are stories of sabotage, hemlines mysteriously let down, show invitations that never arrive, fabric shipments lost somewhere between Milan and the Seine. You develop a network of informants, bellhops, delivery boys, even the stray cats that linger outside your studio, always the first to know if a rival is plotting something unsavoury with velvet. Amid the chaos, you perfect the art of the subtle insult. How clever of you to revisit last season's mistakes, you murmur at a gala. Is that your original design or a tribute? In private, you work twice as hard, turning criticism into fuel and doubts into sketches. At night, you lie awake, replaying every gasp of approval and every hiss of disapproval. This is your arena. And you refuse to go down without a fight, stylish of course, right to the bitter end. In time, the suit becomes a symbol. Women everywhere start to look less like decorative furniture and more like leaders. Your rivals fume, the critics slowly come around, and Paris reluctantly, gloriously changes. And you, in the eye of the fashion hurricane, realize you've survived another season. The game goes on, and so do you, pin in hand, eyebrow raised, ready for the next battle. The world is at war, but you're still throwing dinner parties. Your guest list includes German officers, desperate artists, and enough spies to staff a James Bond movie. The lines between survival, collaboration, and convenience get blurrier than the wine you're serving. You wake up in occupied Paris, where every street corner is guarded by a soldier with a suspicious moustache and a clipboard. Your usual breakfast of coffee and scandal now comes with a side of dread. You're still living in the Ritz, a building where the flower arrangements are fresh, the sheets are pressed, and the rumour mill is working overtime. In wartime, hotel lobbies become neutral zones, battlefields, and confessionals all at once. The city outside is a maze of ration cards, curfews, and whispered warnings. But inside your gilded cage, dinner is served by candlelight, and the company is, well, complicated. German officers arrive in their uniforms, radiating self-importance and the faint smell of mothballs. You pour wine and trade compliments in several languages, never sure who's really listening. Somewhere near the breadbasket, a Russian émigré artist is making cryptic remarks about revolution, while a French poet mutters coded insults into his soup. Social survival is suddenly as delicate as beading a dress blindfolded. Every gesture, every smile, every invitation to just stay for dessert is open to interpretation and possibly surveillance. You find yourself perfecting the art of the vague answer. But of course, General, Paris is enduring. You say less, mean more, and let the conversation drift like cigarette smoke. On the surface, these are glamorous nights, crystal glasses, silver trays, and the kind of music that almost drowns out the sirens. In reality, each gathering is a chess game with the board changing every time someone knocks at the door. You get good at reading the room, who's nervous, who's hungry, who's collecting secrets like party favours. The code words change with the seasons. One month, it's a request for more champagne. The next, it's, do you have any butter? The correct answer is always no, but have some gossip instead. And always, there are favours. The German officers want to be seen in your company. proof that Paris is cooperating, that fashion is still alive, that Chanel is still Chanel. Artists want protection, a place to perform, maybe just a hot meal and a night not spent hiding in a garret. The spies, well, spies want everything, but mostly to blend in, preferably with a plate of oysters and a view of the door. Your alliances are as changeable as the menus. Today's dinner companion is tomorrow's black market contact or, just as likely, tomorrow's anonymous tipster. You learn to trust your instincts and nothing else. You're accused of collaboration by some, heroism by others, opportunism by almost everyone. I'm just surviving, you say, arranging another tray of hors d'oeuvres and watching the clock until curfew. But even in this twilight world, you can't escape the consequences. Some friends stop coming by, their names whispered but never explained. Others appear with new allegiances, new uniforms, new stories about the resistance or the Gestapo or simply keeping busy. The paranoia is as constant as the perfume lingering in the curtains, and yet, your parties continue. They're both shield and stage, a way to stay relevant, to gather intelligence, to remind yourself and everyone else that Paris, however battered, still believes in good shoes and better conversation. Each gathering is a tiny act of defiance, a performance of normalcy in a city turned upside down. When the war finally ends, you'll have to answer for every guest, every conversation, every too friendly glass of wine. But for now, you live in the grey, towing the line between scandal and survival, pouring another drink for a stranger who might decide your fate, and hoping that history is as forgiving as your best silk dress. The streets of Paris are empty, the air raid sirens are wailing, and you're hiding bolts of silk under your bed. Designing a collection during wartime means dodging both bombs and bureaucrats. Inspiration? Try not getting arrested. You learn quickly that wartime Paris is no place for the faint of heart or the easily wrinkled. Your day begins with a scramble for contraband coffee and a glance out the window to make sure the building next door is still standing. In peacetime, a designer's biggest crisis is a late shipment of buttons. Now, it's whether your studio survives the night or if you'll have to sell hats made from repurposed blackout curtains. You're running a fashion house in a city where there are more soldiers than customers, more rules than rations, and more reasons to stay in bed than to get out of it. Your most reliable tools are now your wits and your wardrobe, preferably something dark, durable, and easy to run in if necessary. Your hands shake as you sketch by candlelight, ears straining for the whistle of bombs and the knock of a police inspector just dropping by. It's not exactly the environment for creative breakthroughs. Your beloved fabrics are contraband. Silk is rationed, wool is requisitioned, and you have to sign 3 forms and bribe at least one official to get your hands on a spool of decent thread. You stash your precious materials in creative places, under the floorboards, inside piano benches, once, memorably, sewn into the lining of your least favourite coat. Every delivery is a game of hide and seek with the authorities, who can spot black market taffeta from a block away and have very strong opinions about patriotic design. Meanwhile, every blackout is an opportunity for catastrophe. The power flickers, the candles sputter, and you wonder if this is how all your great ideas are going to end. One hem unfinished, one sleeve suspiciously singed. You cut patterns in the dark, pinning fabric by touch, and muttering prayers to the patron saint of dressmakers and desperate optimists. Your assistants develop night vision and the ability to sew a straight seam while ducking behind a table. Air raid sirens are your new runway music. Whenever they howl, you and your staff freeze mid-stitch, gathering up whatever can't be left behind and dashing for cover. There's a certain absurdity to watching Paris's best-dressed women huddled in a cellar, still clutching pincushions and scraps of lace, debating the best way to use a sandbag as a pillow. When the all-clear sounds, you dust off your sketches and pretend nothing happened, even though everyone's hair now smells faintly of fear and kerosene. And then there's the bureaucracy. A committee has been formed for everything. Fashion quotas, fabric allocations, approved colours. Apparently beige is very patriotic this year. You're summoned to endless meetings where grim-faced men discuss skirt lengths as if they might influence the outcome of the war. You smile, you nod, and you ignore every suggestion that involves burlap. Meanwhile, you field constant requests for uniforms, nurses, chauffeurs, even the post office wants a touch of couture, while praying that the inspectors don't notice your dresses have a little too much swing for austerity chic. Through it all, you cling to a single thought. Fashion is survival. Every dress you finish is a small, quiet rebellion against despair. Every hidden stash of silk is hope preserved for better days. You teach your team to make do, to improvise, to snip beauty from scarcity. The women who come to your boutique may not be able to buy much, but they leave with their heads higher, their spirits lighter, and the secret satisfaction of wearing something beautiful when the world says there's no room for it. So you keep sketching, keep sewing, keep finding ways to outwit both bombs and bureaucrats. Because if you're going to live through a war, you might as well do it with a little style and maybe, just maybe, leave behind a legacy more enduring than blackout curtains and ration cards. From Russian Grand Dukes to British Dukes of something or other, your address book is a who's who of questionable men. Some come bearing jewels, others bring emotional baggage heavier than a steamer trunk. It's not that you plan to make romance a business strategy. It's just that in Paris, ambition often wears a tuxedo and speaks with a suspicious accent. Every evening brings another invitation. A dinner in a mirrored salon, a midnight carriage ride, or a private box at the opera, where the real drama is happening off stage. You say yes because opportunity doesn't just knock. It courts you with champagne and questionable promises. You quickly discover that men with titles are more complicated than their crests. The Russian Grand Duke is charming, tragic, and a little too fond of melancholy poetry. He arrives with gifts, strings of pearls, rare icons, and one memorable evening. A bear cub he insists will grow on you. It doesn't. You dance, you dine, you listen to tales of lost fortunes and even more lost morals. Eventually he confides that he's looking for a woman of vision. You smile, pour more vodka, and wonder if that vision involves laundering his debts. The British aristocrat is all manners and mystery. He woos you with roses, recites Shakespeare badly, and tries to impress you with tales of cricket matches you pretend to understand. His family estate is crumbling, but his sense of entitlement is in excellent repair. Over tea, he admits he finds you exotic, which you take as both a compliment and a warning. He's less interested in your ideas than in your ability to distract the press from his latest scandal. Still, his diamond cufflinks do look awfully tempting. Then there are the artists, politicians, and the occasional spy who slips you a coded message folded in a bouquet. They're thrilling, unpredictable, and always ready to write you a love letter, sometimes before you've even met. One brings you paintings, another brings secrets, and all of them bring the same inevitable result: drama, delivered straight to your door like an unwelcome package. The conversations are dizzying. You talk about art, revolution, the future of fashion, and on occasion the latest police raids. With each romance you learn something new: how to spot a forged title, how to tell real affection from an expensive diversion, how to stay interesting long enough to get what you need, and how to leave before the gossip columns catch on. Some affairs last a season, others a night, and the best ones leave you with both stories and a slightly improved jewellery collection. Of course, every entanglement has its cost. The city watches. Whispers float from the salons to the sidewalk. Are you climbing the social ladder or just collecting rungs? Are you the mastermind or the muse? The men in your life are adored, envied, sometimes despised, but always, always forgiven. You, on the other hand, are judged by a different metric, one that weighs wit and beauty against rumour and ambition, then doubles the bill for every late-night rendezvous. In the quiet moments, you wonder what's real: the lavish gifts, the declarations of undying love, the alliances sealed in bed rather than at the bargaining table. Paris is full of mirrors, and sometimes it's hard to tell who's seducing whom. You play the game with a straight face, a sharp mind, and the knowledge that nothing, not even love, comes without negotiation. But as you turn down the lights and toss another letter onto the growing pile, you remember, power in Paris doesn't always wear a uniform or a crown. Sometimes it wears perfume, sharpens its own wit, and chooses when to let its heart get involved. And in a world where trust is currency and affection is a bargaining chip, you've learned to love yourself first, even if the only thing you wake up with is another grand story to add to your growing legend. One day you're queen of the city, the next you're persona non grata. You swap Paris for the French Riviera, but the sunburn stings less than the betrayals. Your main accessory is now regret, plus a very big hat to hide under. It happens fast. Yesterday you were stepping out of the Ritz, trailed by photographers and envious glances. Today you're stepping off a train into the blinding Mediterranean sun, clutching a battered suitcase, a few bitter letters, and a new appreciation for SPF 50. Paris is closed, doors, hearts, and society pages. You're no longer the headliner at the party, but the cautionary tale whispered in powder rooms and editorial meetings. The Riviera on paper is paradise. Endless blue sky, champagne on ice, yachts bobbing in the harbour, the scent of jasmine and scandal in the air. The reality? Sunburn, sand in places sand should never go, and a summer rental so small even your regrets feel cramped. Your new social circle includes retired bankers, exiled princes, and the sort of heiresses who carry Pekingese dogs in matching hats. The conversation is light, the gossip lighter, but nobody really wants to know where you came from, only what you're hiding. Gone are the endless fittings, the studio drama, the desperate scramble for the last yard of silk. Now you spend your mornings wandering the market for olives and dignity. Lunch is long, slow, and usually eaten alone, staring out at a sea so bright it almost blinds you to your own situation. Evenings are for solitary walks along the promenade, oversized hat firmly in place, sunglasses shading not just your eyes but your entire past. Your wardrobe, once a symbol of ambition and rebellion, becomes camouflage. The big hat? Useful for dodging nosy acquaintances and blocking the occasional stray seagull with opinions about fashion. Every outing is a lesson in humility. You learn that confidence is harder to wear when you're not sure anyone's looking. Regret, however, fits like a glove. Tight, itchy, impossible to shake. You still hear the echoes of Paris in every letter you receive. Old friends turning chilly, old enemies gloating, business partners politely severing ties with the kind of formality reserved for declarations of war. The press speculates about your exile. Some call it self-imposed. Others say it's punishment for crimes against couture, or perhaps just crimes against good taste. In truth, it's a bit of both. The city that once worshipped you has decided it needs a new idol. Paris loves a comeback, but only after a sufficiently dramatic fall from grace. At night, memories come crawling out like last season's moths. The applause, the headlines, the bitter negotiations, the dangerous friendships. Sometimes you wonder if you miss the glamour, or if you just miss being busy. There's no one left to fight but yourself. You try to write, to sketch, to plan a return that will silence every critic, but the Riviera is slow and sticky, and sometimes your biggest accomplishment is making it through the day without weeping into your wine. But you're nothing if not resilient. You watch the horizon, waiting for inspiration to return. Slowly you rebuild. An idea here, a phone call there, a conversation with a stranger who still remembers your name, even if they can't pronounce it. You start to believe that reinvention is possible, even on borrowed land under borrowed sun. The world is full of people who've been exiled by their own mistakes. The trick is learning to live with yours. And so you wake up, again and again, beneath a hat wide enough to hide a bruised ego and a stubborn hope. The Riviera isn't Paris, but it's not the end. It's just another place to dream up a comeback, practicing resilience in the shade, waiting for the moment you can step back into the light, head high, hat on, and regrets transformed into nothing more than another fascinating accessory. It's 1954. You're back in Paris, and fashion's gone full cupcake. Dior's new look has everyone squeezed into corsets again. You, on the other hand, have zero patience for waistlines you can't breathe in. It's war, one elegant, petty insult at a time. Paris welcomes you back with equal parts curiosity and skepticism. The city remembers your scandals, your triumphs, and, unfortunately, that hat you wore at the station last time you left. Your name is still whispered on street corners, sometimes with awe, sometimes with schadenfreude. The magazines call it a return. You call it unfinished business. You walk into your old atelier to find young seamstresses who think of you as a legend, or maybe a myth. They've spent years sewing Dior's wasp-waisted confections. Their fingers roar from the endless layers of tulle. They look at you, poised in your perfectly cut suit, as if you're about to announce a revolution. And you are. With a side of sarcasm. Across town, Christian Dior reigns supreme, his new look the darling of editors and the bane of anyone who enjoys a full meal. He believes in shaping women like hourglasses. You, on the other hand, prefer your hourglass to run out. No cinched middles, no stiff petticoats, just clean lines and freedom of movement. At every social event, you're compared. The press delights in pitting you against Dior as if every hemline is a declaration of war. The The rivalry becomes deliciously petty. Dior's mannequins float past in clouds of silk and fluff. Your models stalk by in trim tweed jackets and skirts that whisper liberty with every stride. Critics swoon over Dior's nostalgia. You declare, he may have genius, but I have a style. At cocktail parties, you unleash subtle jabs with the precision of a surgeon. How charming to dress a woman like a lampshade. I prefer women to look like themselves. The room hushes. A few bold souls clap. Dior himself raises an eyebrow, his smile as frosted as his pastries. Your comeback is hard fought. The world is skeptical. Are you too old, too controversial, too stubborn to matter? Fashion editors hover, pens poised, waiting for you to fail. But your designs win the day, not with spectacle, but with substance. Women walk into your boutique and walk out transformed, confident, comfortable, and able to eat lunch without fainting. You remind them that style isn't a costume, it's an attitude. The comeback isn't just about clothes, it's about proving you can outlast your critics, your rivals, even your own ghosts. Every headline, every review, every snide comment from the Dior camp is fuel. You work late, pacing the studio, fingers drumming on the work table, sketching suits that feel like armour for the modern woman. If you're tired, you never let it show, at least not until you're home and the curtains are drawn. Slowly, the city remembers why they loved you in the first place. Your suits become the uniform for women who want more out of life than polite applause. They are mothers, managers, artists, and even the odd duchess or two. You don't just make them beautiful, you make them believe in themselves. Dior's bouquets wilt, your camellias bloom. Victory doesn't come all at once. It comes in the return of old clients, the applause after a show, the smirk on your lips when you read another lukewarm review and know that history, as always, is on the side of the stubborn. You survived exile, scandal, and the fickle heart of Paris. You didn't just come back, you made a return fashionable. As for Dior, he still gets the headlines, but you get the last word and the last laugh. The war of silhouettes rages on, but you're already planning the next revolution. After all, in fashion, the only real sin is giving up, and you, as ever, are innocent. You're sewing gold buttons onto a jacket while muttering about Dior's ridiculous skirts. You're older, crankier, and absolutely determined to make women look strong, rich, and slightly intimidating. Shoulder pads, optional. Attitude, mandatory. The atelier is filled with the steady click of scissors and the low-level hum of complaints about the state of French fashion. Your staff tiptoe around you, uncertain if you're about to praise their stitching or launch into another rant about the indignity of ruffles. The world outside is obsessed with the new look, hourglass silhouettes and sugary femininity. But you, in your boucle fortress, are designing something subversive. A suit for the woman who wants to command a room without ever raising her voice. You select your fabrics the way a general chooses battle plans. Boucle wool, sturdy but forgiving. Silk lining, because even a warrior deserves comfort. You reject anything too shiny, too soft, too eager to please. The ideal jacket is a paradox, structured but effortless, classic yet unmistakably modern. You stitch it together, muttering darkly about petticoat tyranny and the death of pockets. The pockets, you insist, must be real. If a woman can't stash her secrets and spare change somewhere, is it even fashion? Your inspiration is less fairy tale, more boardroom coup. You want a suit that suggests its wearer could buy the restaurant and fire the chef for overcooking the lamb. You're unconcerned with making women dainty. You want them to stride into meetings, shops or affairs with the swagger of someone who will not apologize for success. Gold buttons glint on the sleeves, a subtle reminder that style, like power, is in the details. The first time you present your new suit, Paris is skeptical. The models don't float down the runway. They walk with intent, hands in pockets, hair perfectly unbothered. The jackets are cropped, nipped at the waist, and paired with skirts that let you move, think, even run if necessary. Critics frown. Where is the drama? Where are the tool explosions, the impractical bows? On someone else's runway, you reply, barely hiding your glee. Customers arrive uncertain but leave converted. The suit does what you promised. It transforms posture, sharpens the jaw, and lends its wearer an air of practiced indifference. Women begin showing up at your boutique after work, hungry for something that isn't just beautiful but useful, something that doesn't wilt in the rain or require a team of maids to zip up. You watch as they slip into your jackets and immediately stand taller. Some grin, Some arch an eyebrow, and a few just nod to themselves, already plotting their next negotiation. Fashion editors sniff and call it practical. You smile, because you know practical is just code for unstoppable. The boucle suit becomes a uniform for women who aren't waiting to be rescued. Your competitors scramble to catch up, adding buttons, trimming hemlines, and occasionally admitting, in hushed tones, that maybe, just maybe, a pocket isn't such a bad idea after all. As the power suit spreads, you find yourself fielding letters from women in every walk of life, artists, lawyers, housewives, diplomats, thanking you for inventing clothes that treat them like the complicated, powerful beings they are. You pin each letter to the atelier wall, a secret mosaic of proof that your crankiness has finally paid off. By the end of the season, the boucle suit is everywhere, the gold buttons winking like inside jokes between women who understand. You're still muttering about Dior, but now it's with a note of triumph. You haven't just changed a silhouette, you've changed what power looks like, and you did it with wool, silk, and sheer stubbornness. The world keeps spinning, trends keep changing, but for now, you are satisfied. Your suit is not just a piece of clothing, it's a manifesto, one sewn pocket, one gold button, and one fearless woman at a time. Your apartment is actually a hotel suite, decorated like Versailles, only with more mirrors and less happiness. Room service is nice, but loneliness comes standard. At night, the ghosts of old friends and enemies come to visit. It sounds glamorous, doesn't it? Permanent residence at the Ritz. Your address is so exclusive it barely exists. The doormen tip their hats with military precision. The bellboys memorize your quirks and pet peeves. Housekeeping knows never to touch your sketchbooks or rearrange the order of your perfume bottles, which sit like tiny expensive soldiers on the marble vanity. Your bathroom is bigger than your childhood home, and your bed could comfortably sleep an entire chamber orchestra, if you ever invited anyone in. The days blur together in a haze of polished floors, crisp white linen, and the faint scent of lilies that are replaced daily, as if someone might be watching to see if you notice. You never have to cook, clean, or fetch anything but inspiration. Room service delivers silver trays laden with little cakes and gossip. The hotel staff have seen it all. Your early mornings, your late nights, your midnight pacing in silk pajamas as you sketch new designs beneath a chandelier that weighs more than most of your assistants. Yet the more you settle into this gilded cocoon, the less at home you feel. The chandeliers don't keep away the dark thoughts that flicker at the edge of sleep. The mirrors, once thrilling, now reflect not triumph, but memory. Faces of friends you lost, rivals you outlasted, and lovers who walked out the door with your secrets and at least one good scarf. The hotel is full of people, but your suite is its own little island, with only the occasional bellhop and a persistent echo of your own footsteps for company. Evenings are the hardest. You wander the hallways in your trademark suit, slippers silent on the thick carpet, passing closed doors and wondering about the lives behind them. Sometimes you pause outside the ballroom, listening to music and laughter from parties you used to attend. Your name always on the guest list, your presence always expected. Now, invitations arrive less frequently. The city moves on, trends shift, and you're left in a palace of your own making, queen of a court that has quietly disbanded. The ghosts keep you company, old friends who urged you to rest, rivals who swore you'd never last, lovers who whispered promises in the dark and then vanished with the sunrise. You remember arguments and reconciliations, heartbreaks and triumphs, all the little moments you never wrote down but now replay on an endless loop. Sometimes you laugh out loud, startling the cleaning staff. Sometimes you cry, softly, into the pillowcases embroidered with someone else's monogram. You try to fill the silence with work. New sketches pile up on the writing desk, a riot of colour and possibility. But even inspiration feels different when the only applause comes from the clinking of glassware in the next suite. You flip through magazines, tracing your name in print, searching for meaning, or maybe just for proof that you still matter outside these four walls. Occasionally you entertain visitors, journalists, socialites, old friends brave enough to break the solitude. They marvel at your luxury, envy your view, and ask if you ever get tired of living like royalty. You smile and say, "Only when I can't find the crown." You tell yourself the solitude is a choice, that it's better to be alone on your own terms than surrounded by people who don't understand you. But the truth is, loneliness lingers like an expensive fragrance long after the bottle is empty. So you pour another glass of champagne, stand at the window and watch the city flicker. In the distance, Paris glows with life and promise. Here, in your mirrored sanctuary, you wait for morning, hoping the next sunrise will bring you company. If not in the flesh, then at least in the world you still have the power to design, one lonely, legendary night at a time. Rest is for people without empires to build. You spend more time in your atelier than anywhere else. Caffeine and spite fuel your creative process. You forget what weekends are, or meals. Every day begins the same way. The clock says far too early, but your brain is already composing lists, designs to finish, patterns to adjust, crises to solve, interns to terrify into competence. The hotel suite is just a place to store your body for a few hours. Your real address is the studio, tucked behind bolts of fabric and mountains of to-do lists, where the air smells like wool, perfume, and the ever-present fear of falling behind. You arrive before anyone else, unless a particularly ambitious assistant has spent the night curled up under a work table, clutching a hem she hopes you'll approve. The atelier is quiet, save for the echo of your own high-heeled footsteps and the hiss of the ancient espresso machine you refuse to replace. One cup, then another, then one for the nerves. You pin sketches to the walls, scribble new ideas in the margins, and scowl at any fabric that dares to wrinkle. Your staff arrives in waves, clutching notebooks and apologies. No one makes eye contact until you've had at least 3 espressos and muttered something vaguely optimistic like, "Today, we conquer incompetence." The hum of sewing machines grows to a roar. Scissors snip, models sachet, someone burns themselves on the iron. Deadlines are a constant presence, hovering like a disapproving ghost, and the only breaks anyone takes are the kind that involve broken needles or broken spirits. Meals become theoretical. Lunch is a rumour, dinner is a mirage. Sometimes you discover a half-eaten croissant on your desk and wonder if you brought it, or if it was a peace offering from a frightened intern. Water is replaced by coffee, snacks by determination. You are equal parts dictator and muse, cajoling brilliance out of exhausted artisans with a glance, a raised eyebrow, or, in extreme cases, a rare word of encouragement. Time ceases to make sense. Afternoon blends into evening, evening into morning, and the only clues are the changing shadows and the number of empty coffee cups scattered around the studio like breadcrumbs. There are no weekends, just days with slightly fewer phone calls and more time to obsess over every seam. You lose track of holidays entirely once spending New Year's Eve unpicking the same sleeve 4 times before realizing it's January. Your mind never stops. Ideas spark at inopportune moments, halfway through a fitting, in the middle of a staff meeting, sometimes at 3 a.m, when you're supposed to be sleeping but instead are sketching by lamplight. You keep notebooks everywhere, in your bag, beside your bed, occasionally in the bathroom. Sometimes you can't remember if you had a good idea or just hallucinated it after your 6th espresso. Your friends, what's left of them, complain you're impossible to schedule. "Let's do lunch," they suggest. You nod and say, "Next season." They roll their eyes, knowing full well you'll cancel in favour of tweaking a jacket collar or reimagining a lining no one else will ever see. Love is a luxury reserved for the evenings when you forget you have 3 fittings and a delivery to supervise. Romance, at this stage, is the brief thrill of a perfect buttonhole. Despite the exhaustion, the relentless pressure, the blurry vision and jittery hands, you wouldn't trade it for anything. The chaos is a symphony, the stress a driving rhythm. You live for the rush of creation, the moment when a design that kept you up for days comes to life on the runway, applause ringing in your ears, even as you're already thinking about next season. Because rest is for the finished, and you, with your empire still to build and your legacy still to cement, have far too much left to do. Besides, you're not tired, you're just temporarily between bursts of inspiration. Or maybe that's the espresso talking. Either way, the work continues, and so, wonderfully do you. Your employees adore you when you're not around. You demand perfection and punish mediocrity with a raised eyebrow and a string of creative insults. Turnover is high, but so are the hemlines. In the Chanel atelier, nerves are as tightly wound as your signature braid. The day begins with the thunderclap of your arrival, a swirl of tweed, pearls, and purpose. Staff scatter, straightening posture and hems, each one hoping today isn't the day they're mistaken for average. The bravest whisper that working for you is like surviving a fashion boot camp with bonus existential dread. The faint of heart lasts about as long as an unpressed pleat. The workroom is its own universe, a place where silence is golden, but not as valuable as a perfectly tailored jacket. Every corner bristles with activity. Pins are wielded like weapons. Fabric is cut with surgical precision. Gossip is spoken only in code. You make your rounds, the atmosphere shifting with every click of your heels. The boldest seamstress risks a nervous smile. You reward her with a nod, or, if you're in a generous mood, a wordless grunt. Praise is rare and never effusive. Acceptable, you say, which is the closest anyone gets to a standing ovation. Your standards are legendary. A stitch out of place is a personal insult. A crooked hem is a declaration of war. Your eye for detail is mythic. It needs more, you declare, waving vaguely in the direction of a sleeve. Your employees nod vigorously, pretending they understand, then spend the afternoon in a flurry of adjustments, hoping to divine your meaning before the next inspection. Mistakes are met with withering commentary. Is this a sleeve or a sausage casing, you inquire, eyebrow arched so sharply it could cut thread. You don't shout, you don't have to. A sigh from you can turn silk to sackcloth. Your creative insults are legendary. That button looks depressed. Cheer it up. If you loved this fabric, you'd treat it better. Are you designing for a woman or a question mark? Soon, the whole team is fluent in your unique dialect of criticism and inspiration. Turnover is, shall we say, brisk. Some leave, clutching frayed nerves and ambitious dreams. Others are quietly promoted to positions where they never have to hem a skirt again. But the ones who remain, the survivors, become your most loyal disciples. They learn your rhythms, your obsessions, the way your mood can be measured by how many times you rearrange the mannequins in an hour. When you're pleased, the atelier vibrates with energy. When you're not, even the sewing machines seem to stitch more cautiously. Despite, or perhaps because of your tyranny, brilliance flourishes. Hemlines rise, silhouettes sharpen, and every collection feels like a triumph born of shared adversity. There are moments, late at night, when your staff catch you smiling, just a little, at a particularly clever seam or an inspired bit of draping. In those rare flashes of warmth, they remember why they endure the pressure. You demand the best because you see the best, even when others can't. Gossip circulates about your methods. Rivals say you're impossible. Ex-employees say you're unforgettable. The press writes about your temper, your genius, your knack for turning chaos into couture. You're called the meanest boss in Paris, but no one can argue with results. The atelier's work is unmatched, and everyone knows it, even the ones who swear they'll never come back, until, inevitably, they do. In the end, your legend is stitched into every garment, every story whispered at lunch breaks, every nervous joke passed between needle and thread. You're both terror and muse, the standard by which everyone measures their own resolve. Because for all your sharpness and stormy moods, you make talent possible, and you make excellence mandatory. After all, Paris is full of kind bosses and forgettable clothes. But there's only one Chanel, and in the end, only the strong and the stylish survive. You're famous, but your family's still a mess. Siblings you barely speak to, nieces who want money, nephews who want jobs. Holidays are more exhausting than Fashion Week. It turns out that success doesn't guarantee harmony at the dinner table. If anything, it sharpens every simmering grudge. Your name might sparkle on boutiques and perfume bottles, but at home, it's just as likely to spark arguments. Invitations arrive for Christmas, but you know they're less about togetherness and more about the chance to see who's gotten fat, who's gotten richer, and who's finally decided to apologize for that thing in 1932. Your siblings all have opinions, and none of them match. There's the brother who reminds you at every gathering that he taught you everything you know about business, conveniently forgetting his only business experience is losing money at cards. There's the sister who insists you wouldn't be anywhere without her good advice, which mostly involved not marrying that poet. Old wounds flare up over roast chicken and ancient bottles of wine. Family law gets rewritten before dessert. Then come the requests. The phone calls are rarely casual. One niece is starting a little boutique. Nothing big, darling, but could you send over a few dresses? Maybe the ones from last season. Nobody will miss them. A nephew would simply die to intern in Paris. He has no discernible skills, but he's very eager and crucially family. Another cousin hints about an investment in her husband's new invention, which turns out to be a hand-cranked egg peeler. The family tree is in full bloom, and every branch is shaking you down for fruit. It's not that you begrudge them their needs, at least not all the time. You remember what it was like to be desperate, to feel as though the world only offered closed doors and cold beds. But success has changed the math. Is that cousin really here for you, or for your bank account? Is this a family reunion, or a budget meeting with extra guilt? Sometimes it's hard to tell. Secrets, too, hang over every gathering like tinsel, shiny, tangled, impossible to ignore. Old affairs, family scandals, inheritance dramas, all wrapped in whispers and knowing looks. Some are best left undisturbed. Others have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment, usually after your third glass of wine. That's when someone inevitably asks, "Whatever happened to?" And the whole table falls silent, everyone suddenly interested in the gravy boat. Estrangement is the family's unofficial pastime. There's always someone who isn't speaking to someone else, usually for reasons lost to history and pride. Invitations are carefully edited. If your sister is coming, your aunt refuses. If you invite your brother, your mother threatens not to show. Navigating family events is less like planning a party and more like assembling a fragile diplomatic summit with a high risk of shouting. Still, there are moments, fleeting, rare, but real, when you glimpse the old warmth. Someone laughs at an inside joke. You remember running wild together as children, before fame and fortune turned every bond into a transaction. For a second, you're just siblings again, squabbling over a slice of cake and teasing each other about who inherited Aunt Bernadette's nose. But those moments pass. The bills for dinner arrive, the requests resume, and the cycle starts over. You return to Paris relieved, exhausted, and more certain than ever that Fashion Week is less stressful than Family Week. You slip gratefully back into the ordered chaos of your atelier, where the only drama is whether the hemline is half an inch too high. Because if there's one thing family teaches you, it's that even the biggest name in Paris is still just a child at the table when the soup is served. You can conquer the world, but you'll never conquer family drama. In the end, maybe the best you can hope for is to look fabulous through it all, and keep your best stories for the memoir, not the reunion. The mannequins in your studio have names, personalities, and opinions. Some end up in the collection, others end up in your personal burn book. You learn that behind every great designer is an underpaid assistant with a seam ripper. You might be the face of the brand, but your atelier is a miniature city-state, populated by women with sharp eyes, quicker hands, and the sort of dry wit that could slice a bolt of muslin in half. The morning begins with the clatter of heels and laughter echoing off marble floors. The models arrive early, shrugging into house dresses, their hair bundled up in messy buns. They are your living sketches, the canvases on which you drape your wildest ideas, the first audience for every new whim. Each model brings something to the workroom besides the standard measurements. There's Lucienne, who can balance a cigarette and a dozen hat boxes at once, and Margot, who gives unsolicited advice about necklines with the conviction of a philosopher king. Some are silent as statues, others provide a running commentary worthy of a cabaret act. When fittings run long and tempers fray, you rely on their comic relief to keep the afternoon from unravelling faster than a poorly tied sash. Then there are the muses, real women with real lives whose style, stories and sheer nerve inspire entire collections. Maybe it's the way a client strides into a fitting room, demanding a dress that feels like a revolution, or a seamstress who pins a hem with such precision that you reimagine an entire silhouette. Your greatest ideas are stitched together from hundreds of small influences. A smirk here, a laugh there, the elegant slouch of someone who refuses to stand up straight just because tradition says so. But for every muse, there are 3 assistants quietly keeping disaster at bay. They are the unsung heroines, the ones who fetch coffee, chase runaway threads, and somehow know where you left your favourite scissors. Their job descriptions are fluid, pinning muslin, soothing nervous models, intercepting angry telegrams, and, on occasion, rescuing you from an accidental nap in a pile of fabric. The atelier would collapse into chaos without them, and they know it. So do you, though you pretend otherwise, rewarding their loyalty with an occasional rare smile or, even rarer, a sincere well done. Workroom gossip is a currency. Secrets pass from hand to hand as easily as tape measures. Who's been cast for the next show? Whose dress made you scowl, but only a little? Which rival house just tried to poach your top model? These women keep score in ways the critics never will, swapping inside jokes and subtle glances during fittings. They know when you're having a bad day before you do, and have an uncanny knack for distracting you with a fresh cup of coffee or a new anecdote about a disastrous dinner party. Some mannequins, both human and wooden, achieve a kind of immortality. They are the ones who weather your sharpest critiques, laugh at your worst puns, and still manage to sell your vision to the world with a flick of a wrist or the perfect tilt of a hat. The others? Well, sometimes they simply roll away, quietly retired to the back room, a silent testament to seasons past and dreams that didn't quite make it off the work table. Behind every collection, behind every show, behind every headline, there is a network of brilliant, tough, occasionally mutinous women who shape your legacy as much as any sketch you've ever drawn. They inspire you, infuriate you, and when the lights go down and the critics have left, remind you why you began this journey in the first place, because fashion, for all its glamour and spectacle, is nothing without the women who make it real. The muslin, the models, the muses, and the miraculous assistants who hold everything together, one frantic fitting and one whispered secret at a time. And if your name is the one on the door, well, that's just the reward for knowing when to take credit and when to pass the scissors. Tabloids love a comeback story, but they love a downfall even more. Every week, a new rumour. You develop a talent for ignoring headlines and starting a few of your own. It's not enough to be brilliant. You must also be bulletproof. Your mornings now begin not with a leisurely cup of coffee, but with a stack of newspapers, each headline more dramatic than the last. Chanel's secret love child, perfume empire built on blackmail, fashion icon or fashion fraud. You wonder if the journalists draw straws to see who gets to invent your latest scandal, or if there's just a dartboard in a smoky office somewhere with your face in the bullseye. You get used to seeing your name paired with words like controversy, betrayal, and mysterious foreign visitor. Some stories are harmless. Did you really slap a rival in the Ritz lobby? Or was that just the world's chic-est handshake? Others sting a little more. Accusations of collaboration, whispers about your business partners, wild theories about where your inspiration really comes from. The truth is almost never as exciting as the fiction, but the fiction sells more papers. At first, you're outraged. You draft responses in your head, sharp, devastating, legally actionable. But after the fifth or sixth scandalous exposé, outrage gives way to amusement. You realise that denying everything only makes the stories more interesting. So you adopt a new strategy. Let the rumours swirl like expensive perfume, and occasionally toss in a little gasoline for good measure. You become a master of the subtle leak. A well-placed remark to a chatty journalist, an ambiguous smile at a gala, a refusal to answer a pointed question on the radio. Soon enough, the press is too busy chasing red herrings to notice what you're actually doing. Your enemies fume. Your friends send you clipped articles with sarcastic notes in the margins. You keep your composure, a living monument to the art of the unbothered. Still, scandals have weight. Invitations dry up. Old friends keep their distance, worried they'll end up in the next exposé. Clients hesitate, wondering if wearing Chanel now comes with a side of national disgrace. You become painfully aware of which doors are still open and which have been quietly, irrevocably closed. Reputation rehab becomes your next big project. You start with charity galas. Nothing rehabilitates a name like a well-posed photo with orphans and a large novelty check. You are seen at all the right events, the opera, the hospital fundraiser, the launch of a new art exhibit where you just happen to donate a significant sum. The press begins to soften, just a bit. Headlines move from villainess of the year to Parisian Phoenix, with a question mark, but you'll take it. You learn to play the game. Scandals, you realise, are just another kind of accessory. Wear them well, and people forget why they were ever shocked in the first place. You let the rumours about your love life linger. Better that than the rumours about your finances. You plant stories of your charitable work, your late-night design sessions, your support for young artists. Sometimes you even tell the truth, just to see if anyone notices. In time, Paris tires of any one scandal. There is always someone newer, bolder, or more disastrously indiscreet to chase. Your name returns to the fashion pages, your invitations resume, and you once again find yourself at the centre of the city's whirling gossip machine. Wiser, tougher, and, you hope, a little less likely to end up as tomorrow's front-page story. Because if history teaches anything, it's that every legend comes with its own collection of rumours and regrets. The trick is to make sure your story is the one they remember, even if half of it is made up. You're no stranger to fiction. After all, you built an empire on fantasy and a few well-placed headlines. Suddenly everyone's making Chanel bags out of vinyl and hope. You send lawyers. You send threats. You consider sending poison pen letters. Counterfeits spread faster than actual perfume. It starts slowly. You spot a handbag on the arm of a woman in Montmartre. One of yours, or so you think. On closer inspection, the seams are crooked, the logo is slightly lopsided, and the chain strap looks suspiciously like it once belonged to a bicycle. You pause, torn between outrage and a grudging respect for the ingenuity of Paris's underground purse economy. Within weeks, imitation becomes epidemic. Market stalls groan under the weight of Channel, with 2 L's, totes, cocoa duffels, and clutches that promise luxury but deliver only static shock and buyer's remorse. You receive reports from as far as New York, Milan, and Shanghai. Chanel knockoffs are everywhere, multiplying faster than rumours at a fashion show. Your real bags are exclusive. The fakes are somehow eternal. At first you're bemused. Surely nobody will mistake these plastic pretenders for the real thing. But then you see the counterfeits sneaking into respectable circles, at soirees, at weddings, even, horror of horrors, at the opera. Society ladies parade their exclusive finds, winking as they whisper about bargains. You begin to understand this isn't just theft, it's an existential threat, a full-scale assault on the very idea of luxury. You go on the offensive. Teams of lawyers descend like well-dressed hawks. Letters are dispatched. Threats are issued. Lawsuits pile up higher than last season's unsold cloches. You fantasize about sending personally inscribed notes, congratulations on your taste, but not your ethics, though your attorneys advise against it. The courts become your second home, and the phrase intellectual property now ranks above haute couture in your daily vocabulary. But the copycats are relentless. They shift tactics, changing factories, suppliers, and spelling errors with the speed of a determined raccoon. You banish sleep in favour of strategy, plotting global raids and dreaming up new designs that will be impossible to fake. Spoiler, it's never impossible. You consider installing microchips, invisible ink, or requiring secret handshakes at the boutique door. Meanwhile, your staff wages a secret war against fakes. Salesgirls are trained to spot counterfeits at 100 paces, arching one eyebrow and asking, "And where did you purchase this?" Models are warned to never ever carry anything unvetted, even on their day off. Behind the scenes, designers whisper about adding elaborate linings or hidden messages. If you can read this, this is not a real Chanel bag. The fight goes public. Magazines run exposés on the billion-dollar fake bag industry. You give carefully worded interviews. Imitation is not always the sincerest form of flattery. Sometimes it's just bad taste. Fashion editors take your side, then immediately publish a guide on how to spot a fake. Your phone rings off the hook with outraged loyalists and slightly embarrassed friends, all wanting to know if their purchase is authentic. Pro tip: if you bought it from the trunk of a car, it probably isn't. Despite your best efforts, the war drags on. For every victory, a seized shipment here, a shut-down workshop there, dozens more slip through the cracks. The market is flooded, the brand diluted, and your patience stretched thinner than knockoff patent leather. You realise that the name Chanel has become not just a symbol of style, but a challenge to every hopeful counterfeiter with a sewing machine and a dream. Still, you adapt. You double down on quality, innovation, and the kind of elegance that can't be faked. True Chanel, you remind the world, is about more than a logo. It's an attitude, a legacy, a wink from the inside. And if imitation really is the sincerest form of flattery, then you, at least, will always have the last laugh, because while they can copy your bags, they'll never copy your legend. Every artist has their quirks. Yours involve lucky numbers, omens, and enough talismans to outfit a fortune-teller's tent. Employees step around salt piles and avoid mentioning the number 13. You believe in luck, not the kind you read about in business manuals, but the kind whispered in candlelit corners and muttered before important meetings. Every day in the atelier starts with a ritual. A touch to the rabbit's foot keychain, a glance at your favourite camellia brooch, and a quick inventory of lucky charms hidden in desk drawers and jacket linings. If someone moves your favourite charm, you notice. If someone forgets to knock twice on the studio door before a fitting, you notice that too. Numbers have power here, and you wield them with the reverence of a mathematician at a roulette table. 5 is your number, your perfume, your favourite sample, your suite at the Ritz. You see it everywhere. 5 sketches pinned in a row, 5 dresses on the rack, 5 cups of coffee before noon, the true source of your energy, but you'll let the world think it's the magic. When a new hire suggests using 13 mannequins in a show, the atelier falls silent. Someone accidentally brushes salt off a work table, and you order an immediate counter-ritual. A pinch tossed over each shoulder, a sharp word for good measure, and an hour spent rearranging the room until the balance is restored. Your staff play along, mostly out of habit, occasionally out of genuine fear. Seamstresses avoid scissors pointing toward the door. Pins are never counted out loud. Bad luck, everyone agrees. Mirrors are draped in muslin after hours, lest they trap a stray spirit or, worse, reflect a dress before it's finished. The good iron is only used for final touches. On Mondays, you insist on starting with a new spool of thread and lighting a candle, ostensibly for focus, but really because you once had a good show after doing exactly that. Before each collection, you consult your own personal oracle, a bundle of mementos, a faded letter, a coin from your childhood, a pressed 4-leaf clover sealed in a compact. You hold them in your palm, eyes closed, and try to divine whether the critics will swoon or sharpen their knives. Sometimes you burn a sprig of lavender by the workroom window, just to keep the wrong sort of energy away. Sometimes you just burn a pile of bad sketches and call it creative renewal. Friends tease you for your rituals, but you're unapologetic. The world is unpredictable, fashion even more so. If a sprinkle of salt and a lucky charm give you the edge, you'll take it. You remind skeptics that even emperors carried talismans into battle. Why should a dressmaker face Paris without a little extra help? Over the years, your quirks become legend. Rumours swirl that you never sign your name in red ink, that you avoid walking under certain chandeliers, that you once cancelled a show because a black cat strolled through the atelier. You neither confirm nor deny any of it. Mystery, you know, is its own kind of magic. Superstitions seep into every stitch. Every button is chosen with intention. Every hem sewn with a silent wish for luck, both yours and the client's. You encourage your team to find their own rituals, even if it's just the habit of a deep breath before a big fitting, or a lucky pin always tucked into a lapel. By the time a new collection is ready for the runway, you've performed enough hidden ceremonies to keep a village safe for a year. When the curtain rises and the models stride out, you watch from the wings, fingers crossed, charms in your pocket, hoping the universe is listening. And as the applause begins, you realise that maybe superstition is just another name for hope. A way to face the unpredictable world, one lucky number and one perfectly sewn dress at a time. Time moves fast, and even Chanel can't design her way out of old age. The city gets louder, the studio gets quieter, and you start to wonder what it all adds up to. A life sewn together from scraps, scandals, and silk. Your mornings aren't what they used to be. Gone are the frantic arrivals at the atelier, the flurry of pins and laughter, the adrenaline of a deadline only you can see. Now you linger over your coffee, gazing out at Paris through a haze of memory and cigarette smoke. The city's noise drifts up to your windows, car horns, construction, the thump of new music leaking through walls built before your first heartbreak. It's a younger Paris now, full of new faces and new rules, none of them written in your handwriting. You pad softly through the studio, running your fingers over empty dress forms and faded sketches. Sometimes you see the ghosts of your old muses and assistants. Lucienne straightening a hem, Margot tossing a clever remark over her shoulder, an intern so nervous her hands shook as she pinned a lining. The air is still thick with the scent of perfume and ambition, but there's space now, too much space really, where once there was chaos. The mannequins are lined up neatly, like soldiers waiting for an order that will never come. The phone rings less often. Journalists want one more story before you're gone. Friends, those who remain, send postcards from villas in Nice or holidays in Rome. The younger designers court your approval with the desperation you once reserved for every tiny scrap of fabric. You offer advice in sharp, loving doses. Some listen, most nod politely, already dreaming of their own empires, their own headlines. Your closet is a museum, each shelf and hanger a monument to victories and near misses. Dresses that changed the world hang next to ones that never made it past a single season. Boxes of keepsakes, letters, sketches, a frayed ribbon from your first hat shop gather dust beside unopened invitations and unsent apologies. You wonder sometimes about the roads not taken, the people you left behind, the dreams you outgrew or simply outlived. Regret is a peculiar companion. It doesn't crash into your life with drama the way fame or scandal did. It arrives quietly, late at night, as you sift through old notebooks or try to remember the lyrics to a song you once sang for supper. You recall loves that faded, feuds that lasted too long, apologies that never left your lips. In the stillness of your room, you ask yourself, did you chase greatness, or did you run from loneliness? Were you building a legacy, or hiding from your own reflection? Yet, you can't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. You outlasted rivals and rumours, saw fashions change a dozen times, made people feel strong, beautiful, even fearless. You gave the world a new silhouette, a new scent, a new way for women to walk into a room and own it. Maybe your greatest creation was never a dress or a perfume, but a sense of possibility. The idea that a woman, with nothing but nerve and a needle, could change everything. You spend more time in reflection now, but you're not done, not quite. The urge to create still sparks in your chest, a tiny, stubborn flame. You jot down ideas for collections that will never see a runway, scribble advice for the next generation, rearrange your favourite buttons just so. The world may be moving on, but you're still here, watching, remembering, making peace with the past one memory at a time. And when night falls, you wrap yourself in silk, spritz a little perfume, and slip between the sheets. The city keeps humming below, the future waiting for its turn. As you close your eyes, you know, legacies aren't always clean or tidy, but they endure, stitched together, scrap by precious scrap, in the closet of history and the hearts of all those still brave enough to dream. The world remembers the little black dress, the double C logo, and the perfume. Few remember the chaos, the betrayals, and the nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if any of it mattered. You drift off, lulled by the smell of Chanel No. 5 and a history no one dares to bottle. There's something strangely comforting about the way legacy simplifies itself. Generations from now, they'll know your name and your most famous creations, but not the tangled string of days and nights that brought them into being. They'll imagine glamour and genius, and maybe a hint of scandal for flavour, but never the heartbreak, the loneliness, or the thousand choices that were anything but obvious. In the end, a life is distilled to a handful of iconic images: a black dress in a shop window, a quilted bag in a magazine, a scent that lingers on the pulse points of women you'll never meet. You wonder, sometimes, what they would think if they knew the truth. The endless grind behind every effortless design, the bitter taste of lost friendships, the alliances formed and broken in the smoky back rooms of Paris. Would they still call you a genius, or would they finally understand you were simply stubborn, terrified, and determined to make something that lasted, if only to prove you existed? You recall the critics who praised your boldness, the rivals who dismissed you as an upstart, the lovers who swore your ambition was the only thing you truly loved. It's a mess, this legacy, as complicated and contradictory as the woman behind it. The legend of Chanel becomes a shield. It protects you from questions you'd rather not answer, and becomes the story others tell themselves about possibility, about transformation, about the alchemy of poverty and nerve into beauty. You watch as young women parade down runways, shoulders back, eyes bright with dreams, never guessing how many sleepless nights, how many lawsuits, how many whispered threats it took to give them that moment of power. The myth grows larger with every retelling, smoothing away the rough edges and awkward pauses. Yet, for all its tidiness, something real survives. The perfume, the dress, the attitude, a blueprint for confidence and a little mischief. You see it every time a woman shrugs on a jacket and dares to walk a bit taller. In the mirror, late at night, you see it too. The girl from the convent, the cabaret singer, the shopkeeper with a head full of ideas and a heart full of worries. You remember all the never amount to anything, never be respectable, never outlast the men who tried to define you, and realise you turned them into always. Always a surprise, always a survivor. Of course, no one ever sees the whole picture. The laughter in the atelier after hours, the tears spilled over ruined fabric, the silent bargains struck with fate just to keep going another season. Your story is embroidered with mess and magic in equal measure. History, you know, is a poor editor. It keeps the myth and misplaces the mess. But you keep both, tucking them away like talismans in a secret pocket, for those rare, quiet nights when you need to remember the truth behind the perfume. And now, as the city softens into sleep, you find yourself drifting on a cloud of memories and scent, not quite ready to let go. The world out there will keep rewriting you, making you grander, simpler, more mysterious, less real. You smile, knowing the truth is always more interesting. You are both the myth and the mess, as scattered scraps of silk, unsent letters, unfinished dreams, and a name that will outlast the century. So you close your eyes and let the fragrance of your own legend carry you away, knowing that what remains isn't just the story they'll tell, but the one you lived, flawed, defiant, unforgettable, and stitched together from everything the world tried to take away. You open the morning paper to find your face sketched beside headlines that alternate between flattery and thinly veiled threats. Every reviewer is a frustrated novelist, and every collection is either genius or criminally boring. You develop a thicker skin than your tweed suits, and a sharp tongue to match. The press has always been part of the performance, and you, for better or worse, have always given them a show. Early on, a kind word from a columnist could turn a slow day at the shop into a stampede. Later, those same voices seemed less interested in your designs and more fixated on your mistakes, real or imagined. One season, you're the saviour of French fashion. The next, you're accused of leading polite society into a moral tailspin, all because your hemlines dared to rise above the ankle. At breakfast, the ritual is always the same. You reach for your coffee and the latest edition of Le Figaro or Vogue, bracing for whatever literary ambush awaits. Some reviews sparkle with wit, almost as if the author was angling for an invitation to your next soirée. Others drip with envy, dissecting your work as though searching for a hidden confession. You can spot a reviewer's mood from the opening sentence. Giddy praise means they're hoping for free perfume, while icy detachment signals they've been denied a seat at your last show. There are days when the words sting. Has Chanel lost her touch? The Emperor's New Clothes, by Chanel. Nothing but black again. What is she mourning this time? They take aim at your clothes, your character, even your lunch order. You learn to remind yourself that most critics are simply designers who ran out of thread. A particularly biting review may call your collection criminally boring, but the next morning your boutique is still flooded with women desperate for the new jacket they just read was utterly unwearable. If the press is a circus, you decide to be both ringmaster and lion. You grant interviews with a flash of teeth, serving up sound bites sharper than any tailor's shears. Fashion is not something that exists in dresses only, you tell them. Fashion is in the sky, in the street. Fashion has to do with ideas, the way we live, what is happening. They scribble it down furiously, unsure if it's inspiration or provocation. When the attacks get personal, you learn to strike back, elegantly but unmistakably. A cool shrug in a televised interview, a deliciously ambiguous quote at a cocktail party, a knowing glance when asked about a rival designer's bold new look. You never let them see you ruffled. Critics, you explain, are simply yesterday's audience with better seats. The truth is, you relish the sparring. Every insult is an excuse to innovate, every snide remark a reason to sharpen your vision. You start to design with one eye on the front row, daring them to keep up. Sometimes, you plant rumours just to watch the critics chase their own tails, turning idle speculation into accidental advertising. A whispered feud here, a mystery model there, and soon the press is doing your marketing for you. Privately, you're not immune to doubt. There are nights you pace your gilded suite, wondering if you've lost your way, if perhaps this is the year your instincts finally betray you. But then the applause returns, the orders pile up, and the headlines, love them or loathe them, are still spelling your name correctly. In the end, you realise that a legend without critics is a dress without seams. Pretty enough, but unlikely to last. So you accept the slings and arrows, the biting wit and the backhanded compliments, and wear them as easily as your tweed suits. Because the only thing worse than being talked about in Paris is not being talked about at all. You think fashion is cutthroat until you're handed a coded message in a lipstick tube. Suddenly your social calendar is full of mysterious strangers and conversations that end with, "If anyone asks, you never saw me." You're not sure if you're designing a new hat or accidentally committing treason. Wartime Paris is a patchwork of shadows and secrets, stitched together by necessity and whispered over the clink of wine glasses. The salons that once rang with laughter and gossip are now dense with coded conversations and furtive glances. You used to worry about fabric shortages and impossible deadlines. Now you wonder if the woman asking for a discreet veil is actually asking for a secret meeting. If fashion is theatre, then Paris in wartime is a farce with a dark twist and no intermission. You receive your first clue that life has changed when an old acquaintance presses a lipstick into your hand and tells you not to open it until you're alone. Back in the safety of your mirrored suite, you twist the tube and out pops a slip of paper, not rouge. The message is as elegant and ominous as any hem. Tonight. Ritz. Tell no one. Suddenly your world of pins and patterns is overlaid with a dangerous glamour of cloak and dagger affairs. Your atelier becomes neutral ground for everyone. Officers in pressed uniforms, artists in threadbare coats, women who speak in careful code about special deliveries and urgent commissions. You host fittings for women who arrive with false names and leave with hidden pockets in their dresses. At night, you nurse a glass of champagne while translating the day's oddest request into a mental ledger. Was that order for navy blue silk, or did it mean something entirely less fashionable and more subversive? Parties, formerly your domain, turned surreal. The guest list now includes men who shake your hand with a practiced indifference, and women who can swap a secret as deftly as a scarf. Every soiree is a chessboard. Who's loyal, who's desperate, who's simply trying to make it to morning without being noticed by the wrong person. You trade small talk with people who have very big secrets, nodding along as though the fate of France has always been discussed over petit four. The boundaries between innocence and complicity blur. A missing shipment of fabric is probably just a logistical mishap, or perhaps it's gone to the resistance, hidden in the lining of coats you never see finished. You hear things, coded messages in the corridor, names whispered and then denied, rumours that the concierge is an informant. You grow accustomed to keeping your opinions fashionable, your alliances private, and your windows closed. Sometimes you stumble into intrigue by accident. You send a note requesting more buttons and receive a reply about a package to be collected at midnight. You meet a client for tea and leave with a shopping bag full of microfilm. You suspect at least 3 of your favourite hats have been used to smuggle secrets across the border. If anyone asks, you say you don't know, and you mean it. Deniability is this season's must-have accessory. But in the hush between bomb raids and fashion shows, you recognise the strange kinship between spies and designers. Both operate in the realm of illusion and detail. Both know how to slip unnoticed through the noise, leaving behind something unforgettable, be it a whisper or a silhouette. Every coded message, every quiet favour, every shared glance in a crowded room is another thread in the tapestry of wartime survival. As the war drags on, you become an expert at not knowing what you know. If you're lucky, history will remember you as a couturier, not a conspirator. For now, you play your part, designing dresses with hidden seams, keeping secrets stitched under the collar, and always remembering that in Paris, fashion and intrigue are cut from the very same cloth. Charity galas, hospital donations, and carefully staged photographs, your softer side gets just enough exposure to keep the public guessing. For every soup kitchen you sponsor, there's a scandalous rumour to distract from. Is it compassion, or just another fabric for the legend? You never set out to become Paris's most mysterious philanthropist. In the beginning, your charitable acts are as practical as they are heartfelt. A warm coat for a model's ailing mother, money for a friend's medical bills, an extra meal sent to the orphanage you escaped. But success breeds scrutiny, and soon the world expects both generosity and spectacle. If you don't host a glittering gala for every good deed, did you really care at all? Your calendar is dotted with invitations, charity balls at the Ritz, benefit concerts, art auctions for the less fortunate, who are, curiously, never invited. Your attendance is photographed, your donations reported in newspapers. You pose for pictures beside solemn-faced doctors and children with wide, uncertain eyes, always in the perfect outfit, dignified, just a touch sombre, and always a whisper of camellia on your lapel. Yet, for every headline praising your generosity, there's a column inch or two of snark. Does Chanel give from the heart, they wonder, or from the PR department? There are those who analyse your timing. Did the hospital wing really need a new wing? Or was it just excellent cover for last week's society scandal? You once donated 100 blankets to the city's poor, and found yourself accused of dumping last season's unsold inventory. You can't win for giving, or not giving. Charity, you realise, is a double-edged sword, one that must be wielded with both flair and calculation. You learn to pick your moments, a discreet envelope to a friend in need, yes, a public check handoff to a bishop with a waiting photographer, of course. You master the art of looking moved but not emotional, involved but not needy, present but never pushy. The aim is not just to do good, but to be seen doing good, at the precise angle that flatters both your cause and your profile. Behind the scenes, your generosity is sometimes less elegant. You fend off constant requests. Everyone, it seems, has a worthy cause. There's the cousin who wants a scholarship for his son. He's brilliant, darling, just a little misunderstood. The seamstress with a sick husband. The society matron who corners you at parties to pitch her latest pet project. You are generous, but you're not naive. Every franc you give is balanced against the next headline, the next bit of leverage, the next quiet favour owed. Of course, some of your best charity work is never reported. You visit a hospital wing at midnight unannounced, bringing flowers and a kind word to a former model whose beauty was outlasted by illness. You pay the rent for an old friend who'd never dare to ask. You instruct your assistants to send food to a struggling family, no names attached. These are the moments that warm you on lonely nights, small mercies that never make the news. But Paris is a city of skeptics. For every real kindness there's a suspicion, a calculation, a whisper in a salon. She only gives so she can keep taking. You learn to ignore the naysayers. In a world obsessed with image, what matters is that the soup gets served, the bills get paid, the child gets a new coat, even if it is from last year's collection. In the end, your generosity is like your fashion, layered, deliberate, and stitched together from both necessity and desire. Compassion or PR? Maybe both, maybe neither. What matters, you remind yourself, is the work, the lives you touch, the warmth you share, and the legend you leave behind, woven from 1,000 acts of mercy and mystery, one carefully chosen gift at a time. Women line up outside your boutique, whispering prayers that the saleswoman will acknowledge them. Your logo becomes a holy relic, the right bag, a status confession. You're both high priestess and chief excommunicator, deciding who gets in and who leaves empty-handed, possibly in tears. It's a strange kind of faith, this devotion to a brand. The boutique is less a shop than a sanctuary, with a line outside that rivals the confessional on Easter Sunday. The air inside hums with anticipation and a faint hint of jealousy. The faithful arrive in their Sunday best. Pearls for the traditionalists, statement heels for the new converts, sunglasses for the discreet. They speak in hushed tones, studying each mannequin as if it might impart a secret. Some clutch their savings, others their inheritance, all ready to make an offering at the altar of style. Your staff, trained in the art of selective benevolence, act as gatekeepers to this hallowed ground. The saleswoman, her hair immaculately coiffed, her smile as mysterious as the Mona Lisa, glances up. One raised eyebrow can part the crowd, one gentle nod can ignite hope. The rules are unwritten but understood. Don't touch unless invited, don't ask for discounts, and never, under any circumstances, question the hemline. Then comes the moment of truth, the blessing or the banishment. The chosen are led deeper into the boutique, ushered to a private room where the holy relics are revealed. Quilted bags, classic jackets, shoes that whisper Paris with every step. The uninitiated, meanwhile, are left to wander the outer aisles, watched by the ever-vigilant staff, wondering where their faith went wrong. A single, disappointed glance from a saleswoman is enough to send a customer to another brand, scarred, but secretly determined to return and try again. The logo itself becomes a talisman. Double C's dangle from necklaces, earrings, even keychains that never see a key. The right bag is proof of belonging, a passport to the inner circle of style. Dinner parties become confessionals. Is it real? How did you get it? What did you have to promise? Owning Chanel is not just a purchase. It's an initiation, a transformation, a public acknowledgement that you have seen the light and the invoice. There are rituals too. Some women buy their first piece to mark a promotion, a divorce, a heartbreak survived. Others inherit a jacket or scarf from a mother or grandmother, the fabric holding decades of whispered wisdom and forbidden perfume. The boutique staff recognize these milestones, wrapping each item in tissue with a solemnity usually reserved for relics. Your disciples leave cradling their purchases, faces shining with gratitude, relief, and just a touch of smugness. But as with any religion, there are heretics and schisms. Rival brands entice the faithful with promises of innovation, exclusivity, a chance to be different. Some succumb, only to return, sometimes contrite, sometimes defiant, always changed. The city's salons buzz with arguments about authenticity, about whether Chanel is still Chanel, about who deserves entry to this most stylish of congregations. You watch from your mirrored sanctuary, amused by the devotion, resigned to the drama. The cult grows with every season, every ad campaign, Every new collection released like a sacred text. You are by turns worshipped and criticized, praised for your vision, condemned for your gatekeeping. You accept both as your due. After all, every high priestess needs a congregation, and every congregation needs its rituals, its relics, its moments of doubt and faith. In the end, you know the truth. The cult of Chanel is less about the clothes and more about the feeling they create, the thrill of belonging, the armour of elegance, the quiet satisfaction of being seen. The boutique doors will close at night, the crowds will thin, but the faithful will return again and again, drawn by the promise that style, like faith, is eternal, so long as you have the right bag. Even the end has to be theatrical. Your final farewell is less about mourning, more about who wore what and whether the flowers were arranged just so. Gossip buzzes through the crowd like perfume. Some people are there for closure, most for the spectacle. You wouldn't have wanted it any other way. The invitations go out as if for a runway show, embossed, discreet, and deeply coveted. Paris's best-dressed flock to the church, their mourning attire so impeccable that one might mistake the day for Fashion Week in grayscale. Photographers jostle for the perfect shot, snapping fur stoles and veils, diamond brooches and umbrellas held just so against the drizzle. In the pews, editors and ex-lovers eye each other across the aisle, exchanging the kind of glances reserved for couture fittings and legal depositions. The hearse is a masterpiece of understated elegance, black lacquered wood, polished chrome, and a discreet arrangement of white camellias, your signature even now. The pallbearers walk with the solemnity of models on a particularly exclusive catwalk, pausing for effect, careful to avoid the potholes on the old Parisian cobblestones. If a few hats tip askew, it's only because everyone wants a better look at the guest list. Inside, the air is heavy with the scent of lilies and old grudges. People lean in to whisper, not prayers, but speculation. Who's sitting in the front row? Who cried first? Who wore black silk and who had the nerve to show up in navy? Old rivals hope for a tearful eulogy, a final confession, or at the very least a disastrous hat. Friends trade memories, some true, some embroidered with just enough flair to make the day memorable. The priest, unused to this level of pageantry, does his best to keep the ceremony dignified, but he's up against a congregation that takes event of the season quite seriously. The readings are tasteful, the music sublime. Every now and then someone sobs with an eye on the press. In a side chapel, a trio of models, inconsolable and perfectly styled, dab at their eyes and practice looking photogenic through their grief. Outside, the city pauses. Shops close early, traffic parts for the procession, and even the pigeons seem to coo in muted tones. The press speculate about your will. Rumours swirl about who gets the archives, the jewellery, the secret sketches tucked away in locked trunks. Former employees reminisce about legendary tantrums and legendary parties, about the nights when the atelier glowed with possibility, and the days when perfection was achieved with a single cutting remark. When the service ends, the mourners spill onto the steps, blinking in the pale sunlight, already jockeying for position in the inevitable photo spreads. The talk turns quickly to business. What happens to the house now? Who will carry the torch? Which collection will be the last to bear your unrepeatable stamp? Somewhere in the crowd, a young designer fingers the edge of a borrowed veil and wonders if greatness, like style, can be inherited. You, of course, exit with perfect timing, fashionably late, even for your own funeral. No last-minute panic, no wardrobe malfunctions, just a gentle slip from legend to legacy. You wouldn't have approved of all the choices. There's always someone who overdresses or arrives in the wrong shoes, but you would have relished the spectacle, the whispered stories, the fact that even now Paris stops to pay attention. Because if a life is measured by its impact, then so too is a farewell. Your funeral isn't just an ending, it's the ultimate curtain call. The applause may be silent, but it's there, in every perfectly knotted tie, every discreetly dabbed tear, every knowing smile exchanged beneath the brim of a hat. You leave them with what you always did best, a moment they'll never quite forget. Style, after all, never dies, it just finds new ways to live on. Tonight, as you drift off surrounded by the gentle hum of your fan and the unmistakable aroma of clean sheets, spare a thought for the world of Chanel, the one that exists behind the perfume counter, behind the mirrored doors, behind the smile that's practiced in 7 languages and 100 lawsuits. You've survived the scandals, the all-night sewing marathons, the legal knife fights, and the awkward dinner parties where half the guests might be spies. Take a moment to appreciate the madness of it all. Fashion empires aren't built on silk and sequins alone. They're stitched together with mistakes, mended with grudges, and lined with secrets only the night remembers. If your own wardrobe feels chaotic, remember, somewhere Coco Chanel is haunting a Parisian hotel suite, judging your outfit and taking notes for her next life. So tonight, be grateful for the little things. Your pajamas fit. Your boss doesn't send you hate mail at 3 a.m. No one expects you to make $1 million from buttons, or to survive a love triangle with half the French aristocracy. The worst scandal in your house is probably a missing sock, not a front-page exposé. History, like fashion, is messy, stubborn, and always half-invented. But it's proof that people are resilient, creative, and just a little bit ridiculous. So as you close your eyes, maybe thank your ancestors, your tailors, and even your favourite old t-shirt. You're here, you're comfortable, and you're gloriously anonymous. May your dreams be free of legal disputes and unannounced visits from your least favourite co-worker. Sleep well, and remember, in the morning, you get to decide who you want to be, and you don't have to sew it all together alone. Good night.